and it sickened him. It made him feel like he had failed God, as if he had failed the people too. So Samuel shared all of these things with the Lord, and God was quick to respond to this. God told Samuel that the people had not let Samuel down. They had let God down. And God was quick to let Samuel know that he had not let God down at all. God didn't want Samuel to blame himself. And then God told Samuel to tell the people all that would have to change if the people were to get a king, like demanding taxes that would go up dramatically. The sons and daughters would find themselves working for and serving the king. Harvest would become an entitlement to the king so that he could feed his army and all of his attendants. Precious metals, livestock would have to be given up, and on and on. If the people want to move from one form of government to that of a monarchy, rights and freedoms would be sorely sacrificed. Samuel did as the Lord asked him to do. He told the people what would happen if they continued to demand a king. And the people still demanded a king. And God said to Samuel, "Then a king they shall have." And you know what was behind those words. As we read the stories of Israel's kings, we know that more times than not, it led to disaster because the bulk of the kings of Israel were dishonest. They didn't have God's heart in their best interest. They had their own best interest in their heart. David was the best king of them all, but look how he started, even himself, as a king. It is not Israel's best history to read the history of the kings. So in time, after the kings failed the people of Israel, what happened next? That's when the desire for a Messiah to come and to save them, that's when that started. And for over 400 years, the people longed for a Messiah who would be sent straight from God to them to rescue them and to save them from their suffering. Ironically, the founding fathers got rid of their king and became servants of the Messiah who came, but the people of Israel missed him. Isn't it ironic how the history of our nation goes in just the opposite direction of Israel? 51 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence belonged to churches. 52 of the 55 signers of the Constitution belonged to churches. And just as a little history reminder, our founding fathers were doing all that they were doing at precisely the same time when Methodism was beginning to spread throughout America. You remember that? As our nation grew, Methodism grew. The story of America and the story of Methodism is the same history. And yet, there are those today who will say that America is not a Christian nation. Thomas Jefferson, or so we have been told for the last 70 years, was not a Christian and probably didn't even believe in God. I find that confusing. Why? Because it was Thomas Jefferson who was instrumental in organizing Virginia's Bible Society. And what that was, and different Bible societies throughout the 13 colonies were beginning, What that was is to collect as much money as you could and purchase written tracts of the Bible and get them into the hands of as many people as possible. That's what a Bible Society did then. It's what the Gideon Society does today. He raised money so that numerous, thousands of copies of the Bible could be put into the hands of people. History tells us, recent history tells us, all of this is recorded in the Library of Congress. Why don't you just go look it up and be as amazed as I have been? History tells us that when Jefferson got to the New Testament, he cut out all of the words that Jesus spoke. And indeed he did. And history tells us that he did that because he was not a Christian. He really did it. What modern historians don't tell you is that he took all that he cut out and he pasted it upon other sheets of parchment and took it to a printer and ran off thousands of copies of it and gave it to the American Indians and said to his fellow people, if we're ever to make peace with the Indians, our best chance is to teach them about Jesus. And you can go to the Library of Congress and find Jefferson's little Bible with all the sayings of Jesus Christ. See, you're not told that part of the story. You are told that Jefferson cut out everything Jesus said. Well, why stop the story there? When I proposed to Peggy, I didn't go up to her and say, Peggy, would you? I didn't stop there. She was holding a golf club in her hand. I wasn't about to stop there. Jefferson was putting together what he felt was the most important part of the entire Bible to put into the hands of Indians so that they might hear about this Jesus Christ themselves. And that would, if anything would ever work, that might be what brings the Indians and the colonial people together. But you don't hear that part of the story. But it's documented and it's there for us to see. Jefferson, a non-believer, in the early years of Thomas Jefferson's presidency, he did a truly remarkable thing. It was December of 1800. The Capitol building was almost finished. It is an amazing accomplishment. We have had the privilege to see it. We haven't had the privilege to go inside of it, and I hope to someday. But it is a magnificent building. Jefferson instituted two important things. He proclaimed that in the hallway of the House of Representatives, each and every Sunday, there will be worship services for all the Congress people to go and be a part of, and people who are visiting D.C. And then he took it a step further. He said, every morning when the House meets and begins to consider bills, and when the Senate considers bills, every morning the day will begin with a chaplain saying prayer.